welcome. So, for some reason, you've decided to take on this monumental task of learning ancient Hebrew. So, I'm sure you have a plethora of questions, right? And so, at some point, you probably even heard that ancient Hebrew only possesses one class of vowel, and that class of vowel is the A class vowel. And so, if for some reason you've been exposed to the idea that ancient Hebrew is void of vowel diversity, what you should probably do at this point is ask yourself some critical questions, right, concerning that approach. Okay. So, for instance, what we want to do now is address the issue or the question: was ancient Hebrew void of vowel diversity? Meaning that was ancient Hebrew restricted to a single A class vowel? And what we'd like to do is to examine the impact, the semantic impact of an absence of vowel diversity. So, for instance, if we were to say, well, are there any features that would aid us in identifying the language? And so, first and foremost, you want to say that orthography should not be the sole determinant when identifying the language. As it relates to ancient Hebrew, we can utilize morphology, phonology, and syntax towards that end. So, morphology is our fancy way of saying how it appears, the behavioral changes, right? What we see. Phonology is our fancy way of saying how does it sound, the changes in sound. And all of this relates to change in appearance and sound as it relates to the change in semantics, meaning. So, there is this inherent value associated with look and sound as it relates to meaning. Now, syntax relates to the arrangement of the constituents, right? The parts of speech. If we were to juxtapose standard colloquial American English to ancient Hebrew, we could probably characterize American English as an SVO language: subject, verb, object, meaning that the subject is the performer of the action, the verb, of course, the action, and the object is receiving the action. So, in the case of the king ate bread in English, of course, the king would be our emphatic noun as the subject. All right, ate would be our verb, the action, and bread would be the direct object or the object. Okay. In ancient Hebrew, the syntax would be VSO, verb, subject, object. So we would have akal hamelik et halechem. So we could just say the bread. So akal hamelik et halechem. The king ate the bread. In English, the king ate the bread. In ancient Hebrew, akal hamelik et halechem. So akal, he ate. Who ate? The king. What did he eat? Halechem. All right. So now what we want to do is ask the question: with this inflected language, what does this mean? Well, because ancient Hebrew is an inflected language, we will conjugate verbs and decline nouns. So we have the ability to identify the subject through the sound, right? The phonological assets and the morphological features. So what we see and what we hear aids us in identifying the subject. So Hebrew verbs allow us in the finite to understand who is performing based on gender. So we have person, first, second, third person. All right. Then we have our gender, masculine, feminine, and we have our number, singular, dual, plural. And all of this is reflected in the morphology and the phonology. So what we see and what we hear dictates how we understand the behavior of the verb. So in this case, let's say we have this entity here addressing these entities. Okay. Let's just say that this entity wants to pose a question to this feminine singular entity. All right. Now, obviously, these two speak the same language. And so, what would happen if this person or this entity was looking to ask this feminine singular entity using the Lashawan Kadasha? right? And the Lashawan Kadasha is the concept language utilized by various Hebrew Israelite factions, and the Lashawana Kadasha is characterized by the prolific use of the A class vowel. Okay, so in this case, we would have Hashamar, Shamarta, Ata, Haga, Pasacha, Hashamar, Shamarta, Ata, Haga, Pasacha. And so then the male responds, Ken, Shamarti, et Chag Pasach, Ken, Shamarti, et Chag Pasach. But then this individual is puzzled because he was addressing this feminine singular entity. So he poses the line of inquiry again. Ha shamar shamarta ata chag pasacha. And again, this masculine singular entity responds to this entity. Ken shamarti et chag pasach. All right. So the verb shamar and the simple active, this triconsonant root or this shorish means to keep. All right. Shamar, to keep in the simple active. All right. And here we have a suffix. So this is suffix conjugation. And this suffix indicates the person, and the vowel accompanying the suffix would indicate the gender. Okay. So Hashamar, Shamarata, Ata, Chag Pasaka. So the reason the male responded because the male heard a second person masculine singular suffix, right? Shamarta, you. So ha. All right. So I guess he assumed, hopefully, that this was some line of questioning. But the masculine singular entity responded based on this, shamarta. So if nothing else, it understood this. And then it heard ata, a second masculine singular subject pronoun, you. Shamarta ata. So ata is second masculine singular subject pronoun, meaning the performer of the action. So this entity heard this but would not respond because she heard this person articulate very clearly shamarta, which is a call responsible for the simple action aspect of the verb's performance. A call, second person, masculine singular, subject, suffix conjugation, preterite from the shorish or root or triconsonantal root, shememresh, shamarta. And then this feminine singular entity heard what phonologically would be understood by these two to be a second masculine singular subject pronoun, ata. So, hashamar shamata, ata, chag, pasaha. So, basically, did you, masculine singular, keep the pasag? But if this entity spoke their language, then what this entity should have said was Ha Shamor Shamarta et Chag Pesach. Okay. Ha Shamor Shamarta et Chag Pesach. So here we have what we call our interrogative hey. It is, well, I guess we could say, interrogating the state of this infinitive shamor. So this is our call infinitive absolute. Shamor, keep. So interrogating this state, keep. Shamarta. So did you surely keep et? Now notice the vowel change. Et is the vowel that lets these entities know that is the article, the accusative, or the direct object marker, meaning that what is to follow will be a definite direct object. Okay. And so this definite direct object is a noun and construct, Chag, the pilgrimage or festival of Pesach. Okay, so morphologically, in appearance, we have an aleph and a tau. However, the phonological assets allow us to differentiate between a second masculine singular, subject pronoun ata, you, and the article of the accusative or the direct object marker it, designed to introduce the definite direct object. So, Hashamor Shamarata et Chag Pesach. So, if this person wants to speak to the masculine entity, Hashamor Shamarata et Chag Pesach, the masculine entity will say Kin Shamarate et Chag Pesach. But if this entity wants to address the female or the feminine singular entity, he will say Hashamor Shemarte et Chag Pesach. So notice the vowel. Same suffix as a second person feminine singular. Shamart et Chag Pesach. Hashamar Shamat et Chag Pesach. So asking this feminine singular entity, did you surely keep or observe the pilgrimage or feast of Pesach? All right, to the man. And again, this is important because of absence of vowel diversity. What we have here, all right, could be potentially understood to be a different verb. Okay, so we have a hatapata, which is a half vowel. So ha, shamor, and so the A class vowel in root radical 1 followed by the O class vowel and root radical 2 is indicative of the simple active or the call, infinitive absolute. So ha shamor, because shamar would be our third masculine singular. All right, so ha shamor, shamarta. And this is our G stem or call, second masculine singular suffix conjugation, in this case, preterite. Hasher Marsha Marta El Chag Pasak. Did you surely keep the Pasak? So, this is why it's important to have vowel diversity because, in the absence, this person does not have the ability to differentiate between gender. And then there's ambiguity or confusion. Shamarta, masculine singular, Shamarti, feminine singular. Hashamar Shamarta et Chag Pasak. Hashamar Shamarti et Chag Pesach. Shalom.